Folks, back here at the club at Shadow Lakes, getting ready to pay tribute to former First Lady Nancy Reagan, who passed away recently. Santa Monica, California today, a motorcycle procession led her to Simi Valley and, of course, the presidential library of her late husband, Ronald Reagan, where she will be in public viewing through tomorrow. And then on Friday, with the Marine Band, she will be laid to rest at a funeral. And, of course, she will be buried side by side next to her husband with their tombstones facing their beloved Pacific Ocean. Well, our region, people like former Governor Tom Ridge, also former Governor Dick Thornburgh, a good friend Elsie Hillman, and this man, longtime head of the Republican Party in Allegheny County and the very first Allegheny County chief exec, he is Jim Roddy, knew her, and we're going to look back at her amazing life. She was amazing, wasn't she?
She was, Rob. She was his best advisor, her number one advisor. He was surrounded by a lot of powerful men, powerful women that had all sorts of credentials, but she was the person he relied on when he really wanted to know what she thought, because she had a common touch, and she had a lot of common sense, and she was absolutely devoted to him, and she had his interest at mind always, when some of the other advisors may have had their own interest in it.
Well, I understand that George W. Bush, his wife Laura, former First Ladies Rosalind Carter, Michelle Obama, currently obviously the First Lady, Hillary Clinton, they will all be attending, and that's bipartisan politics at its best. She was really loved by everyone, Democrats and Republicans, right?
She had a lot of class. She'd been an actress, and she met on the set. She was cast in a movie with Ronnie,
right,
as she called him, and so she and Reagan made a movie together, started a romance, and they were married shortly thereafter, and had a wonderful life together.
Got married in 1952. He was the president of the Screen Actors Guild then. She was the First Lady of California from 1967 to 1975. He, of course, then governor, and became the First Lady when he was elected to the office of presidency, and stood by him through so much, including that assassination attempt in 1981. But the thing that I'll always remember about her, and I didn't realize this connection with you, and we're going to talk about it, was her Just Say No campaign, because the 80s was horrific as far as what was happening with drugs in this country, and she really stood up and made a difference, and that's where you kind of come into the mix. Explain that to the audience.
Well, I was chairman of the Outdoor Advertising Association of America, and when she started the Just Say No program, we agreed that we would put up billboards all over the United States. Every billboard company dedicated a percent, 10, 15% of their space, and we had billboards really across the country. And she really did appreciate that. And I got a letter inviting me to come to the White House for an appreciation luncheon that she was giving for those that had helped in the campaign. And it included some television and radio people, and a lot of other people, newspapers and magazines that had participated in the campaign, and a lot of staff members that had worked on the Just Say No. And we at the West Wing of the White House had a nice luncheon, maybe 100, 150 people there. And I got to sit, because I was the chairman of the association, I was seated at the table with her. We were multiple tables, but I was at the head table. And so I got to have a conversation with her. And she was so gracious and smart. She knew the details of everything that was going on with the program. She just didn't lend her name to the thing. She made decisions about it. She approved the copy that was on television and radio, and the copy for the billboards. She could give you the statistics around the country of what the drug problems were and how it was being addressed. She had all sorts of information about things that we were doing to try to arrest the problem. It was a very enlightening luncheon, because I saw a side of her that usually you don't see. You just see her in public places with the president, always handing out, receiving a bouquet of flowers or something like that. But she was a smart lady and a very capable lady.
You know, when he left office in 1989, he had an approval rating of 68%, which matched Bill Clinton and former President FDR. He was loved. He had an amazing 2 terms, and I believe she had a lot to do with that. You know, I've told this story. I was a very young person in this business, just recently out of broadcasting school, and I was hungry, and I was doing everything I could to get certain interviews, and it was that run, that presidential run in 1980, and he was then governor, and somehow I ended up in the back of a car with him from the 9/11 Air Force Base to the Coriopolis Elks and got a good half hour with him. And I remember when he came off of the plane, it was the movie star that I remembered as a kid. Death Valley Days on television, a real hero of mine. But as soon as he got in that car, and I was only 21, we were talking about the hostages and everything that was going on, I knew he really wanted to be president, and he cared about this country. And my friend who was with me that day, who went on to become the head of the medical division at General Electric and has had an amazing career, Joe Hogan, we were both so impressed, and I thought, a couple of 21-year-old guys just so excited to have been that close to President Reagan. There was something about him, and I'm sure his background of being in the movies had something to do with it, but he was a true patriot. And he gets in as the 40th president, and then the supply-side economic policies dubbed Reagan economics. Talk about why that was so successful.
Well, it was successful because he cut taxes and stimulated the economy. Now, the last time we had a recession, and we were going through a very bad recession, prime interest rates were at 20. The economics were simply in a shambles, and he said we're going to cut the tax rate and encourage businesses to grow, and that's what happened. And businesses grew, and we really came out of it twice as fast, exactly twice as fast as we have recovered in this last recession.
Here's what amazes me, and I was doing a little homework before coming to spend time with you today. Inflation went from 12.5% to 4.4%.
Yes.
That's unheard of.
We had rampant inflation. It was really, I was in business during those times, and we kept raising our rates. We would have to raise our rate. We raised our rates like 38%, but everyone was doing that across the country. But business really began to be stimulated when Reagan came in, and he did a very good job.
Now to his second term, probably the most amazing time in any president's history. The Cold War, the bombing of Libya, challenging then Mikhail Gorbachev, who was running the Soviet Union, to tear down that wall. He really was a man for really all seasons and everyone. No matter where he went, they embraced him. He was as electric speaking when he said tear down that wall as JFK was when he went to Berlin.
Yes, he was a great communicator, and that came, I think, from his acting days. And he said every politician ought to have a few acting lessons, which I thought was a good comment.
I think we'll end on this note. Jim Roddy, my guest, we're at the club at Shadow Lakes paying tribute to Nancy Reagan. The thing that I will always remember, if I would have been so lucky to meet a woman like her, I've never seen anyone love someone so much as she did, and especially 93, his last public appearance, Richard Nixon's funeral, suffering from Alzheimer's. She basically protected him for the rest of his days on the earth, and he passed away in 2004. But I don't know if there's ever been a greater love affair.
Well, I'm sure there probably have been, but certainly that was one of the great love affairs, and probably for U.S. presidents, it set the standard.
But I do one thing. I think she ran the household.
Oh, yes. I don't think there's any doubt.
Hey, his man is a legend to me and many others, and I'm so honored that he would come here today. It's great seeing you.
Good to see you, Rob.
Jim Roddy at the club at Shadow Lakes.